Hello everyone, welcome to our podcast or first time teaching English. My name is Paola and today I'm here with my friends Daisy, Leslie and Cayetano. Hi everyone!
Hi, Paola.
Today we are going to talk about our first experience teaching English. Daisy, how was your first class?
One of the main challenges I found was that the students didn't know any English, so we had to start from the very basic, like the alphabet. At first, it was difficult for the pronounce some letters or words. Sometimes they got distracted or lied when the repeat one I said.
That's nice, Daisy. And you, Leslie, how was your first experience?
The challenge I encountered are that many schools don't dedicate enough time to English, and many schools use special workbooks that, from my point of view, don't contribute much to the learning process and don't allow for alternative approaches. Instead, they force students to use their own methodology.
That's so fun. Cayetano, how was it for you?
One of the biggest challenges I faced during this practice was my English pronunciation. Despite reviewing the topics I was going to teach, my pronunciation was not very helpful because I would often stumble over words, but I managed to hide it or repeat them so the students could understand better. Another thing that was very difficult for me and one of the challenges I faced was that the students had very limited vocabulary and didn't understand everything I said. The teacher uses a textbook and her teaching method was to give the students a text and have them translate it with the help of their dictionaries. I didn't want to do that because I realized that constantly translating is very useful for the students. It's more effective to give them vocabulary that they can use for review.
Very good. I think we all had the similar feelings. My first class was also hard, but in the end, I went very well. I was very excited and also nervous because it's my first real experience as an English teacher. Before the class, I practiced my pronunciation many times and I checked my lesson plan again and again. When I started my class, I saw all the students looking at me and I felt a little scared, but I smiled and said, "Good morning, class," and they answered, "Good morning, teacher." That moment made me very happy. The class was very active with did games, movements, and short conversation. I started to use similar words, short sentences, and more gestures. I also repeated the instruction and showed examples that helped them understand better, and they started to relax and smile. I learned that being flexible as a teacher is very important because every group is different. And at the end of the class, I felt very proud. Even if everything wasn't perfect, I knew I had done my best. I learned to adapt my activities, to speak slowly, and to be patient. Little by little, I improved my confidence, and now I feel more comfortable teaching English. Now, let's talk about our experience as a teacher. What challenges or problems have you found while teaching English?
To keep the students' attention and make the classes more fun, I used games and repetition. For example, when we learned the alphabet, we did it with things, and that really helped them remember the letters. I also asked them to repeat words so out loud to practice pronunciation.
As I mentioned before many times, they don't let me use my strategies and I have to adapt to their way of working, but even so, I always try to show them a video vocabulary in English and Spanish, and I always try to accompany them in carrying out the activities. I avoid leaving them with independent work.
During this practice with my students, I didn't really use many teaching or playful strategies. Since at first I adapted to how the lead teacher was teaching the classes. However, I then noticed another need, namely the students' limited English vocabulary. Therefore, I requested an agreement with them to provide vocabulary for use do review. So they can learn more English and find it more useful in their lives. This excited the students because it's a different way of learning English and they haven't started using some phrases. For example, to ask permission to go to the bathroom I will ask them in English, and even in such a simple way they are really using English in their lives. This was of the few strategies I was able to use with them, also because there were many changes in activities which prevent me from completing the English session with my students.
Yes, that happens a lot for me. Planning activities takes a lot of time, and I always want my lesson to be fun, interesting, and useful for my students. But sometimes it's hard to prepare everything. I spend many hours looking for ideas, materials, and games that can help students learn better. Sometimes I prepare an activities that I think will work perfectly, but in the class doesn't go as I expected. Maybe the students are tired or they don't like that kind of activities. In those moments, I have to think fast and change my plan. I try to be flexible and look for other ways to keep their attention. I also learned that not every class has to be perfect. What's important is the students enjoy learning and feel comfortable using English. In the end, I think planning takes time because we care about our students. We want them to learn in the best way possible. Even if it is difficult, I feel happy when I see them smile or say new words in the English. That's make all the effort worth it. So, what strategies do you use to solve these problems?
At first, some students lost or going distracted, but with patterns and dynamic activities, I managed to get them more involved. We repaired the words together, and I explained the meaning of each one, especially when we read a paragraph in English, though it were big words, so everyone could understand better.
I always try to make the class dynamic and keep them participating to capture their attention. I ask them many questions about what they think words mean. We also watch videos about pronunciation and I have them repeat the words.
As always, then, issues should be resolved through dialogue, since that is the best way to address them. Also, as I mentioned before, when I saw the difficulties the students were having due to their limited English vocabulary, after speaking with them and my homework teacher, we agreed to provide them with some vocabulary. Primarily to make everything we are learning and doing more useful. This vocabulary can also be very helpful with them in their lives.
Those are great ideas. I also use videos and Canva presentation with many colors and pictures. I think visual things help students remember new words and ideas much better. When they see images, they can connect with them with meaning and that makes learning easier and more fun. In my classes, I like to use short videos from songs, stories, or cartoons. The students listen and repeat and try again to describe what they see. Sometimes I stop the video and ask, "What happening now?" or "What color is that?" They enjoy answering and feel more confident speaking English. With Canva, I prepare beautiful slides, full colors animation, and big words. I don't like boring presentation. I always try to make them attractive with pictures of animal foods or famous places. For example, when we study vocabulary about food, I show real pictures and we play a game. I say the name in English and have a point to correct image. They love and learn at the same time. I think technology can help us a lot of as a teacher, especially when we teach a new language. It helps the students' attention and gives them another way to understand. Still, sometimes the internet doesn't work on the screen faces, but that's part of teaching. We learn to stay calm and find other situations. In the end, I believe that when students see and hear English in creative ways, they feel more motivated to learn. That's why I always try to use Canva and other fun visuals material in every class. Now, what teaching methodologies do you follow in your English classes?
My methodology was more communicative and practical. I focused on having the student listen, repeat, and connect the sound with the letters or words. It wasn't just about memorizing. I wanted them to feel comfortable speaking and listening to English, even if it was just very basic things.
My methodology was to adapt to the way they worked on English at the school. I observed the way the teacher gave her English classes and tried to replicate it only in a more dynamic way, with videos with more participation, among other things.
During this practice, I didn't follow any specific methodology. As I mentioned before, I followed the way my supervisor conducts the practice, partly because I can change the way she teaches her classes since ultimately she'll be the one struggling, and partly because it would be right to do so. Changing it would be disrespectful to her. Therefore, I followed her methods, her way of teaching English, and did the same things she did. Since that's what we're told, we have to adapt to our supervision and not confuse the group.
During this practicum, I didn't follow any specific methodologies. As I mentioned before, I follow the way my supervisor conducts the practicum, partly because I can change the way she teaches her classes, since ultimately she will be the one strongly, and partly because I wouldn't be right to do so. In my classes, I always try to make students talk, even if they make mistakes. I tell, don't worry, just try, because I think making mistakes is part of learning. I prefer when they speak a little English with confidence instead of staying quiet because they are afraid. I use short dialogues, simple question, and daily life situation. For example, we practice conversation like buying something at the store, introducing themselves, or asking for direction. Students enjoy acting and using English for something real. Sometimes I bring objects of pictures to make it more fun and realistic. I also like to include group work in pairs activity. When students talk to each other, they feel more relaxed than when they walk only to the teacher. They laugh, help each other, and use the words they have learned in natural ways. I think that communicative approach helps the students and understand that English is not just a school subject. It's a tool to connect with other people, and that's what makes teaching so special. Seeing my students speak English, even a few words, makes me feel very proud and happy as a teacher. Thank you, Daisy, Leslie, and Cayetano, for sharing your story and ideas. And thank you, listeners, for joining us today in your first time teaching English. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.